Here on the Never Lose Your Cape podcast, we talk to people in the sports and entertainment world about their true stories of perseverance and hope. Today, my friends, we have a special treat for our finale episode of season 1. We are excited to have a woman from my favorite section of the entertainment industry, the comedy world. My guest today is a veteran of the incredible the Second City IO Theater. That's right, people. The same place that birthed comedy legends such as Steve Carell, Bill Murray, and Amy Poehler, just to name a few. She then took her experience in comedy and her love of improv to become the founder and CEO of her own business, Improve It, which uses improv to help companies truly excel in the workplace. She is also the host of the hilarious podcast, Failed It, a Clemson University graduate, but most importantly, mom to Jackson, the amazing Erin Diehl.
Okay, first of all, I want that intro every time. And second of all, I am the finale. What did I do
You
to
are the
deserve
finale, lady. You're
this?
the
Okay.
finale.
I feel final and I feel excited about it. This is so fun.
We are closing out season 1 with a big deal, and we are
Yes.
rocking season 2 already. Can't wait for y'all to listen. But if you want to see Erin's beautiful smiling face and me looking like a lumberjack with no makeup on today, please visit neverloseyourcape.com. Erin, we are so excited to have you here. And we like to start every episode with a warm-up segment just to get into it. So I'm going to ask you 2 rapid fire questions.
Let's go.
Number 1, what are you binge watching right now?
Okay. This is a great question. Lisa, I have not watched TV. I'm going to be real. I'll watch like a show, but I haven't binged watched probably since September or August of 2020. Let me tell you why. Because I moved. And then every night, and I have a toddler and I run a business. So every night after work, I'm taking the time that I have when I'm not momming to unpack still and make things happen in this house. However, the show that I will forever binge watch, and I've binge watched probably twice, is Schitt's Creek. Favorite show. Love it so much. It is close second. Have you ever seen Working Moms on Netflix?
I've watched a couple episodes, but it's a little bit too dark for me. As weird as that sounds, because I like to pretend like moms don't have to live in that dark place.
It gets dark, but it also gets really funny. It's hilarious. This woman, Catherine, writes it. She is so funny. So those are my Schitt's Creek. I just watched an episode of Friday night. I actually watched the finale of that. So we're talking from one finale to the other.
I also feel like you have been on mark with the consistency of our guests. I actually am not even binge watching now either. So I think I'm going to change the question to what's your favorite show you watch right now, because I don't binge either, but my favorite show that I watch right now is Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, which you have to watch because you would absolutely love it.
Okay, I have heard that from several people. The universe is telling me, and done. I will put it on the list because it's kind of like Glee. Is that what I've heard? Ish,
but the lead actress, is hilarious. Like, I want to be best friends with her. Not only that, but she reminds me of my good friend Katie. So when I watch it, I feel like I'm like hanging out with my friend Katie, and so it's amazing.
Okay, all right, it's on the list. But yeah, I wish I was binge watching something. I'd probably be more rested and have less bags under my eyeballs. But
Final question for our warm-up segment: best thing about quarantine 2020?
Oh, well, I moved across the country in a global pandemic with a toddler, with a business who was tanking. The sarcasm is real, but it is truly the best thing is I live now closer to my parents. So what it really did was make me reprioritize what's important, and having a 2-year-old miracle, Baba, and not being close to his grandparents was really hard. So we moved from Chicago to Charleston, South Carolina, and we live near the ocean and we live near my parents. They're an hour and a half away. They come up all the time. And my mother-in-law moved here. So, and we have tons of friends that we went to college with. We went to Clemson, as you know, go Tigers. And it has been truly a blessing. We would never have been able to do this because everything I used to do was in person, as was my husband's job. And so it's just been a joy to be close to him every day and then be close to family and the ocean. I love the beach.
You're
Love.
living the dream.
I mean, it was through a nightmare that I got here, but it was
You're here. You're here
I'm here
now.
now.
Before we start, I just want to say, let me be clear that Erin did not ask me to say this, but I'm going to say it because I'm obsessed with it. If you love comedy like I do, you need to go and follow Erin on Instagram because she posts the most hilarious skits that it will just make your day. So go follow her at Keeping It Real Deal. That's DIEHL. And she didn't even ask me to promote it. Like I said, she's just so funny. I want to share her joy with all of you. So go follow her. Now, we're going to get started. Erin, tell us how you fell in love with comedy.
Yeah, first of all, that's so nice. And second of all, I'm going to shout out to everybody in the Never Lose Your Cape fam. Okay. I am what I like to call a fail-fluencer. Okay. So I never had a public Instagram account until April of 2020 when I said, okay, it's probably time to show up in a digital sense here. So now I've been really leaning in and I'm not really sure what I'm doing, but I'm having a lot of fun. And actually right before this, I was filming 2 what I call reel deals, REEL, real deals. And my ring light died. I'm on my 3rd ring light. So I had Molly Ringwald, Lord of the Rings, and now I'm going to have to get a 3rd. I'm going to have to do a small funeral for Lord of the Rings because he keeps dying. He keeps dying. Now, how did I fall in love with comedy? I don't. To be completely honest, I don't know the answer to this. I just feel like I was born with laughter in my veins. My family is really jovial. We just love to make fun of each other, tease, but also it comes from this really loving place. And my mom has been in community theater since I was 3. I was in My Fair Lady. My mom was Eliza Doolittle, and I was a street urchin, okay, at 3. And then I danced, and I always just found joy in bringing other people joy. So if that sounds selfish, that's what it is. But I truly love watching people laugh. I love to laugh, but I've just always enjoyed the the moment when I see somebody's eyes light up because of something that either I did or said or made them feel better. So my goal is always to make people feel better. I said my family teases. My family is the only space where I do comedy to like pick at people. Comedy in other terms is just to make people feel good. And that is truly, I think my purpose is when people are in my presence, I just want them to walk away feeling better than they did before they came. And so long-winded answer to say it's just always been a part of my blood. I was voted class clown in high school. I did sketch comedy in high school. I wanted to be a talk show host when I graduated with a communications degree from Clemson. I danced at Clemson too, so I was a varsity athlete at Clemson. I was on the dance team there. And then I graduated and said, I want to be the next Oprah. Where do I go to get that training? Because back then the internet still had basically like AOL Instant Messenger and Facebook had just been invented. There weren't tons of how-tos and gurus in this area. So I moved to Chicago where Oprah lived and I said, let me take improv classes. That seems right. And that's where my love of improv began. But I will say this, just to caveat, I was afraid of improv at first. I did a lot of what I like to call exposure therapy to get to where I am today, because everything I did before, dancing, sketch, acting had a script. And I'm an anomaly in the improv world. I am type A. I am a control freak. So to let go of that was terrifying for me. And what makes improv funny is not trying to be funny. It's the truth in the comedy. So I had to really learn very quickly that standing on stage and setting up a joke or getting to the punchline, that's short-lived, but the real comedy is listening and reacting to others around you.
And that's such, for those of you that don't know improv, what Erin just said is such a scary but powerful thing that you actually have to listen and respond. Like, I just think if it was mandatory that all middle school or high school students had to do an improv class, think of how much better listeners they would be to other people. And for those of you that don't know, the premise of improv is yes and. You have to accept the situation that's laid out in front of you no matter what. And then, so you take this amazing world of improv, again, which I highly recommend everybody do once in their life because it just teaches you incredible lessons. But when did it click in your head that you were like, hey, I'm going to take my love of this incredibly powerful thing and create it into a business to help companies basically be better? In short.
Yeah, great question. And I'll give you the shortest answer possible. I was floundering in my 20s. I wanted to be a talk show host, but there is great parents who never, that's an example of yes and. First of all, my parents were never like, don't be a talk show host. They said, go do it. And their theory was, if I want something, I'm going to bug the crap out of somebody until they give it to me. So like, if you want to do it, you'll go do it. So that was a perfect example. I think my entire life, they have never told me that I couldn't do something. They've always lived by this yes and philosophy without even knowing it. So as I was going through my 20s, really trying to figure out my path, I was doing a lot of MC work. I was working with this advertising agency out of New York, and I was traveling and working with amazing brands and doing things across the country, more as like the face or the brand ambassador for these brands. I was so burnt out. By the time I was 26, I just said, I can't do this. And I would be doing comedy in between these gigs. So I'd take a class for 8 weeks and then I'd have to go back on the road. So I finally landed at a 9-to-5 job, which was, I was doing business development and recruiting. Did I ever think either of those two things would be in my life? Absolutely not. But I really enjoyed them because I love people and I like connecting with people. So it gave me the stability to work during the day, to shut down at 5 o'clock, and to start taking comedy classes again. So I really, when I was around 27, got back into the improv world, back at Second City, IO, The Annoyance. I went through these classes with just a lens of, I'm going to try this because it's new and it kind of scares me a little bit and I need to get out of my comfort zone. But what I started to see was everything I was doing in my classes spilled over into my professional life and even my personal life. And I became a better listener. I became a better and more empathetic person to my clients. I was thinking more quickly on my feet. I was more present. So I started to really see that connection. And then I started putting the two together. Wow, these things really help you in your professional life. And I wanted a solution that would be affordable to the small and mid-sized businesses, but also very, engaging. I wanted this to be a professional development company who uses improv versus we are, a theater, which is not to say like Second City has an improv arm or a corporate arm to what they do. They are amazing at what they do. They are my home. That is where I got the love of this. But I wanted to differentiate in the fact that we have high quality facilitators helping do these workshops, but we're professional development first and foremost. We use improv as this vessel, but it's not a theater. We're not going to have you come buy tickets to our show. We are going to come to your office and we're going to show you how this can benefit your life through experiencing it. So one of my clients at my recruiting firm was United Airlines. My boss at the time, another perfect example of yes and. I told her about this idea. She said, we've got to talk to our contact at United. United Airlines let me pilot, pun intended. Uh, uh,
Professional comedian folks here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Our programs to them. And so that was history. They started letting me do a couple for free, and then they started paying me. And I knew I wanted to improve it to be more than just myself. So I quickly found people in my classes and in my different teams that I was on and started telling them about the idea. To this day, one of the first people I told, Christy Mercier, is our director of talent, and she leads our 22 facilitators nationwide. And she's
She
with
is
me.
also found in all of the Instagram skits.
Yes.
So very, very funny
Yes.
herself.
Yes. So
Um, Now, it's also what's so crazy about all this is that if you're lucky enough to know Erin, as I am, which by the way, we're very good friends, but we have never met in person. I'm hoping to go to Charleston in October, and then I'm hoping we
yes,
can actually meet. By the way, look at we have the same color. We are totally
you're
vibing on the same
besties. We're
coffee cup color.
always besties. Also, you got to give me dates on that. That is new information that I'm very excited about.
It's brand new. I'll hit you up. But it's if you're lucky enough to know Erin, she's so funny, she's so bubbly, and it's over assumed that comedians and funny, successful people like Erin never have a bad day or never go through a tough time. But that is just simply not true. And for example, you talked about on your own podcast, Failed It, your journey of infertility, which was, an incredibly challenging time. And it's also not only that, but when you listen to the podcast, when you listen to that episode, you can see it going in the direction you're like, oh, there's no way that's happening. It's so unlikely. It's so unlikely. And then you hear it happen. So can you highlight some points for us from that?
Oh man, yes, and thank you. I mean, I am so open to sharing it because I do think you and I agree on this, Lisa. More women need to talk about it, and it needs to become normalized because it affects every area of your life. To your first point about comedians not having bad days, oh man, I can tell you with confidence that a lot of people who are comedians turn to it as the source of light in their lives. And I think that a lot of comedy can come from places that we've had darkness and we bring the light to those situations. And I mean, I try to live, and you mentioned vibing. I try to vibe at a high frequency and live a life where I can be a source of joy to others, but that means I have to bring that joy to myself first. And so I went through an infertility journey in 2016. My husband and I had been together at the time. I don't even know. Gosh, we've been together almost 14 years, but for a while. And I wanted to start Improve It first. I knew I wanted this company to be my first baby because I wanted it to be off the ground before I went all in as a mom. I never knew or for me, becoming a mother would be so difficult. And we went through a lot of testing to figure out what was going on. And through that process, found out that we shared a shared genetic mutation for hearing loss and deafness called GJB2. And so through a process of elimination, we went through 3 rounds of IVF.
Oh, wait, hold on one sec. I want you to tell people how incredibly rare it is for one, you to have that gene, but for your husband to also have that gene. That's what's ridiculous about this story.
It's crazy. The stats are insane. It's like 1 in so many thousands or millions so if you get genetic testing and you carry a gene, it is very rare to marry or be partnered with someone who has that same genetic mutation. So that was super rare. And not only did my husband carry the same gene on one chromosome, but he carried a variable of it on the other. And so the likelihood of us having a child who was born deaf, it's like, this is not a gene where hearing losses over time. It is deafness at birth was 50%. And so we did 3 rounds of IVF. We tested the first 2 rounds. Every single embryo that we had carried these genes, except one, which had a variable, so John's variable, and then also my mutation. And we asked our doctors to implant this embryo, and they said yes. So I went through a protocol to have that happen 2 days before, which is a ton of medication. If you know anything about IVF, you are going tons, shots in the butt. Okay, gluteus maximus. I'll say hiney on here. I mean, it was just progesterone oil in the glute. And on top of a really serious hormonal regimen of pills, and oh man, it's crazy. So they pulled the plug 2 days before. They wouldn't do it because of liability issues. The board refused to do it. So we did another round of IVF. That was our 3rd round. We didn't test any of the embryos. We implanted an embryo. It did not take, but I kept coming back to this one embryo, which we knew was a boy, and we knew his name. We named him Jackson. And as you mentioned in my bio, I called and refused to give up till I found a doctor in a fertility clinic in Chicago who would work with us. And I will always be grateful to Dr. Angie Belsos at Vios Fertility, because she said, I will implant this child for you. We knew the implications. We knew the risk that he could be born deaf, but we were willing to take it. My gut, my heart, everything in my body just said, you have to implant this embryo. This is your child. And the embryo she transferred him, and I have a 2-year-old son, and I'm a mom because of her.
An all-female practice that just took you said, hey, you know why? Because you advocated for yourself so well, it's just, you were told no over and over again, and you just kept going. You kept pushing because you knew in your heart that you wanted to be a mom, and that Jackson was waiting for you. And now here he is, and he's healthy. And by the way, not that there's anything wrong with being deaf, but he's perfectly fine.
That's right. And we were willing, I mean, I learned so much about deaf culture in this process. We, when the hearing test happens in the hospital, we were very, very grateful, but we were also very open to whatever possibilities came our way. And so I think the deaf culture is beautiful. I found so much, I would have researched as much as I did. And yeah, we're very grateful and lucky, and he's a healthy, happy kid.
Yeah, one of my life goals is to be fluent in sign language. So my son is taking a class now, but if anybody out there wants to do Zoom sessions with me, I'd love to pick it up. My goal someday is I'd love to coach deaf children. And yes. So I'm trying so hard.
Okay, well, I'll take them with you. You have a partner right here, because I think it's a beautiful, beautiful language.
Now, so when you were in the thick of the most challenging time of your life, like because infertility sister right here, I mean, I think I did 16 or 17 procedures to have my children. And so it can pull you to such a dark place. Like for me, what I had to do was, because of the medication I was on, I had to take a pregnancy test every month, and just the anxiety and the darkness that I would feel every time I had to take that test and then sit in it, knowing the results, it's so difficult. So when you were in those challenging times, what tools did you use to help persevere through those times?
Yeah, I love this question. And it kind of rounds the corner about what we were just saying, because I truly felt like I had to go through this because I had to learn to mother myself, before I could learn to mother somebody else. And I think prior to infertility, which by the way, 16 treatments is insane. So I know what you're going through. It was mentally, physically, emotionally taxing, not only just for me, but for your partner, and you feel so alone and so vulnerable. So I have always been as you know, I danced in Clemson. I've always loved exercise. So I kept up a morning routine. I know it's so annoying that influencers are always like, here's my morning routine, but I really did it. And I would get up and before I looked at my phone, before I did anything, I would give to myself because I knew if I couldn't give to myself, I couldn't give to my team who was waiting for me at work because I had less things to give than normal because I was going through so much. So running, weight training, by weight training, I mean 7 pounds. Okay. But weight training. And then also I fell into a very beautiful mindfulness practice that I still have today. And I found meditation. I read the book, The Artist's Way. If you haven't read this book, it is a phenomenal book, and it's a way to open your creative blocks. And it's a 12-week book. You can't just sit down and read it overnight. It's a 12-week book. You have to go through the process. And through that, I started journaling, but I also found guided meditation. And without that, I still do those two things every single day. And I get up before Jackson. If he has a rough night, I will still do it. Like Kamala says, you just get up and you do it, even if you don't get enough sleep. Okay. Kamala Harris does it. I can do it. So I still do those things, because if I don't start my day by giving to myself or putting myself first, I'm not going to be able to fill other people's cup. So filling this cup is so important. And then I can fill other people's, but I have taken that practice with me through IVF till motherhood. I hope I always have it, because I can tell a difference on the days that I don't do it.
Love that. So exercise, morning routine, giving to yourself, really important tools. Second, mindfulness practice. I love all those things. So if you're listening and you haven't tried those things, what do you have to lose? Give it a try. Now, is there what's crazy about you is there a constant message that you tell people you work with about some of the best things they can do to break up their struggles, whether it be a serious life-altering struggle or even just the world that we live in now of getting through our new everyday challenges, like massive Zoom fatigue, which is hilarious because we're Zooming right now. But in what my current full-time job, like sometimes I have 9 to 12 Zoom meetings a day. And so I think that we all can live in everyday struggles. It doesn't have to be big, massive life altering struggles, but our everyday struggles. Like, what do you tell people about that? What's your message?
Yeah, and I love that, because we don't have it live right now, but we created a Zoom fatigue mini course at Improve It, and we should just bring it back because people need it. I mean, look at the bags that are my eyes. This is not a shopping spree at Nordstrom's, okay? These are real bags, and we're so sick, and it's so unnatural of staring at our screens. We were all isolated in our homes. We're all feeling a little bit of anxiety about this uncertainty when the world is now starting to, quote unquote, go back to normal. People are returning to offices. Some people are staying at home indefinitely. So my message is always this: put yourself and your mental health at the top of every list. So every Sunday, I will sit down and I will look at my week, and I will plan it out hour by hour. So I am making sure the things that I need to get done are in my calendar. So if I always send you my Calendly, I have that space open because I want to take calls, I want to take meetings during that time. But I prioritize in that calendar lunch breaks now. I did not do that in 2020. I probably got 2,000 steps a day from April of 2020 till about May of 2020, because I was freaking out. A completely in-person business, completely overnight, had to turn virtual. I didn't leave my apartment, A, because I was scared, but B, because I was so consumed with trying to figure out how to make this work that I didn't do what I always preach, which is take time away, because in those moments of putting into your life, you're able to give out what your team needs, what your family needs, what the world needs, but you got to put those times in for you. So I'm a huge fan of, number one, blocking out lunch breaks. Do that. Take a lunch break, even if you work from home. Number two, if you have a call or a Zoom planned with somebody that you have met more than twice in your lifetime, ask them for a walk and talk and get outside and walk and talk.
Preach, sister, preach.
Yes, yes, walk and talk. Ask yourself before scheduling a meeting with someone, does this have to be a Zoom? And filter through your mind. Can I send them these 3 bullets in an email and they respond when they have time? I think gone away is the 9 to 5. And now we're seeing people's work-life blend happening versus work-life balance. There is no, in my personal opinion, there is no such thing as work-life balance. It is work-life blend. And if 2020 taught us anything, it's that we are showing up now as our real selves. Mothers are being seen as mothers, as we always should have been. But now this work-life blend, and parents and dads have seen now staying home what it looks like for a working mother to go through her day, but also have this internal mental load that is constantly running in our minds. So putting ourselves at the top of that list, prioritizing it at the beginning of every week, finding opportunities that don't have to be Zoom calls, and finding opportunities that you are giving to yourself. I'm a better boss, a better leader, a better mother when I do all of those things and I have fresh air and different inputs in my brain so I can process different outputs.
Right. And I think this podcast is all about perseverance. I think a key to perseverance is that, like, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And a part of that is you have to put your foot down sometimes. And the phrase, I am not available at that time, is such a simple phrase, but it can be so powerful. Like, I do exactly what you say. I try and block, like, I have in my calendar blocked, like, pick up Grayson from school. Like, we
Yeah.
trade off days with the neighbors, and one of us walks and picks up and drops off for school. One, if I didn't have it in my calendar, I wouldn't forget. But people will try and schedule meetings over blocks I have in my calendar. And I'll just say, look, this is the time I have to pick up my son from school. I only do it twice a week. We can talk on the phone on my walk on the way to school. But other than that, I'm not available at this time. Can we look at another time? So if you give people that inch that leads to a mile, you kind of bury yourself, and you're not giving yourself the legs to persevere through this whole race.
Absolutely. And a good friend of mine, she's an author, and also she does a lot of work with improv. She says goals are boundaries. And if you have certain goals, so if your goal is, I want to spend time with Grayson, I want to pick him up and spend that 30 minutes with him, and that's my goal as a mother, is to spend that time with him, that's a boundary that you're setting. And I feel as if 2020 really allowed all of us to set firmer boundaries because we were able to really reprioritize what was important for us as parents, as leaders, as human beings. And I really believe strongly in the power of those boundaries in order to live the life you want to live.
Right. And I also have to tell myself, like, you're never going to be in their debt. Like,
Right.
last night, I had a meeting at 8 p.m. I had, on Friday night, I was still talking to an agent at 10:30 Friday night. So if you take 30 minutes out at 2:30 in the afternoon, you're never going to owe that time back, because you and I both know there's, like you said, there's no 9 to 5. You just keep going until what you need to get done is done. That's how
That's
it
it.
works.
That's it. That is it. And I prefer it to actual 9 to 5 now. I think I don't miss commuting. I don't miss getting up and I lived in Chicago for 15 years, and traveling to and from work was more stressful than the work itself. I don't miss it.
Oh, I don't miss it at all, because I think it's such an ill productive use of your time.
Agreed. Snaps to that. Snappy, snappy.
Last question for you. What is your final message of hope that you want other people to know?
Oh, I love it. This is a very cheesy quote, but I run an improv bit. No, my life's motto is pretend that every person that you meet has a sign around their neck that says, make me feel important. And if we can treat each other with that mentality, and you can be the light in a world that is filled with darkness, and you can provide that, you will get mirrored back what you are putting out. It's again that same thing, what you put in, you give out. So if you're putting into your body things that fuel your mind, your soul, your spirit, and then you're able to give that to another human being, imagine what that does for their day, and they can spread that joy and pass it on. So just my answer to that question is just be the light, and others will follow suit, but it starts with you, and really try to treat other people as though they matter so much. And I that is why I love improv as a teaching tool, because you can feel that when you do improv and you take the methodology and apply it to business and to life.
I love that. Thank you so much, Erin, for sharing your stories of perseverance with us. If you have any further questions or comments for myself or Erin, please visit our website, neverloseyourcape.com, and send us a note in the contact us section. And don't forget to check out Erin's podcast, Failed It. And as a reminder, you can see the video version of this episode. Visit neverloseyourcape.com. Erin, you're the woman. Love you, lady.
Love you, Lisa.
Keep crushing it.
Thanks for having me.